So, welcome once again to this NIE-ICMR WHO online course for ethics committees in India. I had already talked to you about the international guidelines to sensitize you about how to review the collaborative research when it has either domestic or international flavor. So, the learning objectives of this session would be to evaluate multicentric and or international research proposals for compliance to national and international guidelines and regulations. Now, you have a rough idea about what these regulations or guidelines are. So, we will now examine also to see whether there is compliance with the guidelines for data sharing and transfer of biological specimen. This is important because India is a rich biodiversity country and therefore, any material that goes out from India requires certain policies to follow, which are made by the government of India. Now, the aim of such a collaborative study is actually to reduce the burden of disease by ethically sound means and also to see whether there is fair distribution of benefits and burdens of research. We have already, I had in the previous session, I had already talked to you about the national and international guidelines. So, this slide is only recapturing the whole thing again. Now, I will highlight a little more about the ICH GCP guidelines, which actually pertains to compliance of international guidelines for regulatory clinical trials, what the pharma is interested in. But if you follow that for any other research also, it is equally good. Now, what does this GCP guideline state, which was of course revised in 2016? It states that it is actually meant for an international ethical and scientific quality standard for designing, conducting, recording and reporting trials that involve human subjects. Now, you would when we are talking of participants, you might be wondering why we are actually talking about subjects, but you must understand that the US still calls the human participants as subjects. So, it remains. Now, what does this document aim at? It is actually for protection of participants and also to have a data integrity through the documentation of at each step of research. Now, coming to the Indian regulatory requirements, this is just reiterating that in 1940 we had the Drugs and Cosmetic Act and the rules came about in 1945. So, it took 5 years for making rules. In 1986 we had the Environment Protection Act, which is equally important for application when it comes to biotech products, which as you know are used for health also. So, the Indian GCP that took off in 2001 and it was based not only on the international ICH GCP guidelines, but also incorporated a lot of sections from the 2000 ICMR guidelines on ethics. 2005 we have the Schedule Y being released, Schedule Y of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, which is very pertinent to clinical trials, and 2013 onwards we had some minor amendments in between, but it was in 2013 that it took a significant role in amending the rules and the Ministry of Health bringing out notifications through the Drug Controller General of India. Now, we will see what these aspects how they apply to the Indian scenario. ICMR guidelines in 2017 says that when you are comparing two interventions, the availability of best possible nationally available care should be there. One has to assess and share the burden and benefits of a particular proposal. Equal respect has to be there for the rules and regulations of both countries that are involved in the designing of the proposal. When it comes to transfer of biological samples, ethics committee has to be very vigilant and also has to see whether there is a requirement for health ministry's screening committee. This is very important, and without the Health Ministry Screening Committee approving it, the Ethics Committee should not approve a proposal for initiation of the project. Because the Ethics Committee will have to give its approval when the the Health Ministry Screening Committee reviews such a proposal. So, after the approval is received from Health Ministry Screening Committee, the Ethics Committee has to be vigilant about how the research is conducted and also monitor it. We hear a lot about this collaborative research happening now between north and south to south. We have the famous example of the BRICS countries coming together for many collaborative efforts in the area of health. Now, what are the influencing factors or special concerns related to such a proposal? Is a sort of nature, the nature of collaboration, what type of collaboration it is it putting us at a lower pedestal? So, that is the duty of the Ethics Committee. How are the benefits being distributed, and also especially when it comes from the north comprising the western countries, one has to actually look into the cultural, economic, political, ethical and religious perspectives, which actually should not conflict with the objectives of the proposal. One should also you should also understand that countries are at different stages of development. Some have regulations, some have guidelines, some have no guidelines. So, one has to actually make a judgment against that, both about the science as well as whether it is culturally sensitive or not. Now, when it comes to developed versus developing countries, sometimes there is no choice, but let me tell you that India is actually quite aware of these differences and makes demands on equal footing. Now, the Emmanuel group, Zec Emmanuel group brought out 7 requirements for multinational clinical research in the ethics of that in 2000. By the time they also realized that there is a lot of importance to be given to communities as well, because most of the developing countries have a community culture. So, they brought out 8 points this time, giving importance to communities when it is coming to the point of fair selection and also giving respect. The 8th point actually elaborates on how collaborative partnership can be established, and this was published 4 years later. When it comes to ethics of care, one has to treat both the test as well as the control group. How you go about it has to be decided by the ethics committee. Now, many a times the ethics committees do not understand what is this ancillary care. Any non-research related injury, if you give care for that, manage that, that is called ancillary care. So, there is an obligation to provide that also. And then of course, many a times one starts discussing about post trial benefits, especially if the intervention is supposed to be effective, proved to be effective, or any other interventions, example HIV treatment for those who seroconvert in non-HIV treatment trials. Now, when you come to Helsinki Declaration 2013 version, the standard of care described is that it should be best proven intervention. The benefits, risks, burdens and effectiveness of a new intervention must be tested against those of the best proven intervention. Now, different countries will interpret this in different ways. As you know, Helsinki Declaration is only a directive. The countries have to adopt it according to their requirements. And what do different countries speak about it? Now, when we say no care, it means a country does not have any intervention for that particular disease. So, in such countries, when you have studies, when you have international collaborative studies, then the comparator arm, how it should be, Brazil states that it should be best available anywhere in the world. Thailand states that it has to be decided by the host country. Uganda states that it should be best proven nationally available intervention, and India states that it is best possible nationally available care. So, there are differences between countries depending upon their requirements. Now, exceptions to this worldwide best intervention is when there is a scientific necessity, when it is relevant to the host community or sufficient benefit to a host community, and the subject and host community is not harmed. Now, this is brought about, this paper was published by Wendler, who was one of the team of Zech Emanuel, the earlier paper that I had showed you about the 8 points for ethical multicentric trials. Now, here is a classical example of a country's need. There is no standard care available, but at the same time they need to conduct studies to see what is feasible in their country. Suppose it is 90% effective in West and it is a costly intervention which the developing country cannot actually afford, especially if the disease burden is huge. Then in that case the host country would think, how much of this can we have a modification of this intervention to affect as many, to bring relief to as many people as possible. It need not be 80% or 90%, but even if they achieve 40 to 50%, that would be good. Now, this is the reaction of the host country, but in the West many people would question this. They would say that what you have not applied in your country, how can you do it in a developing country in a inferior dosage, using an inferior dosage regimen. So, these debates go on, but it is for the countries, regulators, policy makers to take a decision in such programs. That is why you need health ministry screening committees approval for such collaborative studies. Now, what do they actually look for? One is clearance by the appropriate authorities. So, as ethics committee members, you also have that duty to see whether the approval from health ministry screening committee has been obtained, and if it is an intervention, whether the intervention has been approved by the say a drug, whether it has been approved by the Drug Controller General of India, or if samples are involved to be sent outside the country, then whether the Directorate General of Foreign Trade, especially if it is for commercialization, whether that approval has been taken. Now, generally the countries have memorandum of understanding, or even if it is a collaborative academic research, even then there would be a memorandum of understanding. So, one has to actually see, the ethics committees have to see whether there is equal partnership. It is not like exploitation of Indian site by taking away the advantages of the site, but not providing enough capacity building to the local site. So, that sort of partnership is not desirable. So, ethics committee has to see whether there is equal partnership footing, and in case there is a commercial aspect that may come out of that research, whether there is any clause pertaining to benefit sharing, because the Indian participants have been actually used for the study. Is there any benefit coming to these participants, or is there any benefit to the institution, or is there any benefit to the country? How you will go about it? And there is also, when biological materials or data is to be sent across to the other country, one will have to see what sort of information is being sent. Is it a sensitive one? And also when it involves IPR, is the Indian scientist protected? What is the percentage assignment of the profit to be given to the Indian researcher as well as the Indian institution which had the researcher working under its authority. Now, many a times what we have seen in the ethics committee functioning is lack of experience in assessing risk benefit ratio. That is the usual problem, but when it comes to international studies, one has to be extra vigilant about this. Most of them are actually ignorant about the requirement of transport of biological material to out of the country. They do not know that there is a Government of India policy on that, what are the requirements. Many a times we have also seen that the MOU or HMSC approval is not insisted upon, or if they have given the decision, they are not very serious whether it has come back, that information has come back to them or not. That is why there is inadequate review and monitoring of conduct of research within the socio-economic and cultural context. This is very much required, especially when there are public health projects or any research related to social science or behavioral science related to health. What are the post trial responsibilities? Are we talking of medical care? Are we talking about availability of the product, or is advocacy enough? Now, who discharges this? Is it the investigator's duty or the sponsor's duty, or the government should intervene? All these aspects the ethics committees should actually look into. And to whom should it go? The participants, the general public, or the risk group? How do we go about it? Can we argue for free intervention made available, or can we argue for differential pricing? But these are decisions which the ethics committee cannot take. This has to be at a higher level, at the level of the Drug Controller General of India or the government. So, these aspects have to be looked into. There are certain aspects which the ethics committees cannot actually deal with at their level, but they can always ask for prior agreements for any benefits being talked about or any denial of rights. Sometimes the proposal will have in the informed consent document, you have no right to ask for any benefit in case a particular intervention is made commercial. So, that aspect the ethics committees have to look into and have to actually put down their argument that this is not going to be tolerated. Now, examples of international collaboration studies. A good example was the HIV prevention vaccine trial, where it took more than 2 hours to prepare the site with involvement of the community, where the people, the participants were to be drawn from peer group discussion in that community, sensitizing community advisory board to the ethical aspects, and also preparing the informed consent document. And this process actually involved the politicians and the media also as equal partners. So, there was no problem when this particular study was initiated. But what happened in HPV vaccine trial? This was a design which the Indian, I do not think the Indian researchers were very clear about, as well as the government. So, this was a demonstration project which was not understood well actually, but there were actually some problems with that particular trial which got highlighted very much, but it is also to be seen that the official mechanism which was acting was not apprised of the ethical aspects about informed consent. In both studies you find that informed consent was the central point. So, HIV prevention vaccine trial took good care of that aspect, whereas HPV vaccine trial did not give that much of attention to the aspect of informed consent, because adolescent girls were involved, and there were instances where the head of the institution or the warden of the hostel where they were staying gave consent on their behalf. That means, they did not have any clear understanding of how things should be. So, one has to prepare the site very well before before such research is actually initiated. That is the important lesson that we learn. So, actually HPV vaccine study had created a lot of confusion, and the thought that people did not know what is demonstration project. This time in the 2017 revision of the guidelines, we have included what demonstration project means in the public health research section of the guidelines. What is the present status of international collaboration in India? It is more on the partnership basis and research is more competitive. India's dependency is also declining, as we have seen in the recent MOUs and joint statements. There is greater mutual trust and respect for the local laws, rules and guidelines generated by the collaborators from outside the country and within the country as well. Awareness is growing about harmonization of ethical guidelines and regulations for sustained collaboration, and there is also better understanding about technology transfer, infrastructural development and publications. People have become more aware of partnership basis in this, and they actually demand that they are not exploited in the process. So, with this background, I suppose you have all understood a little bit about how to deal with the situation when it involves a proposal of international collaboration. Thank you.